Congratulations on the film. Can you talk about the first time that you experienced Terminator?
Thank you. I don't remember the first Terminator, but I do remember the second one. I had just moved out to LA to become part of the visual effects industry, which I was hoping to be an illustrator when I graduated from college, but then I somehow got involved with computers, which sounds stupid now, but computers weren't a thing back in the early 90s, or they were just starting to be a thing. And so I saw this movie that was such a perfect combination of story and visual effects, all these cutting edge digital wizardry. It was amazing, and it made me feel like I was kind of part of the future myself. And I was so excited to be in the industry, and that made it something like that.
T2 was such a foundational film in terms of special effects. You obviously come from that industry. It's relatively rare for people to come from your side of the fence over. There's so many dramatic directors who learn the effects. I'm just wondering if you could talk about working with actors after working with pixels.
Well, I directed a fair amount of mocap, which is different but similar.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is going to sound like an arrogant story, but I don't mean it to be, but my casting director on Deadpool, Ronna Kress, she was great. I said, what should I do? Is there any rules I need to know? And she's like, you could read a book or something like that. But we did the first casting session and interacting with the actors coming in to audition, and she just said, you're fine, don't worry about it. Which I really think is just being a human being. Directors so often get credit for just being normal, or saying thank you. Everybody's like, oh, he's such a nice guy. I'm like, really? Because it's just pretty basic human interaction. But no, you just talk to them, and you make them feel like they're part of the process instead of just meat puppets.
I'm not sure you can be a visual effects supervisor and be Von Sternberg. I think that this is probably where it's at. You're not allowed to yell at people when you're used to the other side?
I don't want to yell. And, the biggest thing that I could say was helpful was, I was a visual effects artist, but I also owned a company. And I managed artists and people, and I had learned how to manage people without making them all hate you, which is, with artists, tricky, right? It's like herding cats. So it's the same thing in a movie. You have people that need answers, that need to be either patted on the back or corrected if they're off course, and you need them all not to hate you and feel like they're part of the process and included.
I want to talk about Dark Fate because I think the most remarkable thing is how coherent it is. It really feels like a one piece, one vision. But if you look at the credits, there's a gazillion names there for story and a gazillion names for script. Usually that's a sign of disaster, but here it really worked. If you could talk about that process of making one movie out of all of this.
Sure. I would say that that's deceptive because the way Jim said it before, we had planned to make multiple films, and because of that, as we broke this new story, we were breaking story for multiple films. And so we made the decision to have the writers for those other films in the writers' room as well. So Josh Friedman and Chuck Egley, they're writing other movies based on the story, but they didn't do any writing on this movie. They were just in the room, and so contractually they are part of that. David Goyer and Justin Rhodes wrote the first draft of the script. There were some issues. They had to go on to another project, and Billy Ray pretty much rewrote it from scratch. I wrote all the action and anyway, so there was continuity there, and the structure was there from that all of us agreed to, and Billy just made some really key contributions, but also really made the characters sing. And then Jim wrote a few.
Can you talk about the pressure of bringing this sort of back to where it started?
Maybe there's something wrong with me, but I don't feel pressure like normal people do. There's so many people in this industry that surround the director that help you if you're willing to let yourself be helped, and they're fantastically talented. So I never feel like I don't have people at my back who can help me, and so I don't feel like I'm going to fail. Maybe that's stupid, but I feel one of the first AD said, Tim, you don't always know what you're doing, but you have good instincts. And I take that as a compliment because there's so many other people around who do know what they're doing.
Last question. Our site's called thatshelf.com. It's that thing in your room, in your house, where you put all the cool stuff that you sort of collect. What do you collect? What is the stuff that you would put on that shelf?
Oh, I have books signed by books that writers like rock stars to me. So I have books signed by the authors or old books that my dad had on his shelf, or books that were kind of formative in my youth of of things that who made the books that made me who I.
Is there a specific book you want to highlight?
There's a book by Joe Abercrombie called Best Served Cold. It's probably my favorite book of all time. There's, oddly enough, a lot of books from Neville Shute, all the Edgar Rice Burroughs books, Tarzan, John Carter of Mars, all of those, and Robert E. Howard's Conan. And C.S. Forster's Hornblower books. Love them.
There's great stuff to read. Thank you very much, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Cheers.